hello, and welcome back to Here We Are, the mindful podcast for millennials, where it's all about remembering where we've been, knowing where we're going, and taking up space in the present through the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Teka, and I'll be here to tie together the practice of presence, mental health and faith nuggets, life lessons, and tying some humor and music in there along the way. Whether sharing my own experiences or featuring a special guest, I hope to inspire you to take control of your story and ultimately take control of your life. I hope you receive what you need from today's episode, and remember, check out the show notes for any links that I reference today. Ready? Let's journey. All right, y'all, welcome back. This is a solo episode where I'm going to talk about something very relevant and important to me: conflict. And important in the sense that I absolutely tend to avoid it by any means necessary, especially when I feel uncomfortable about it, whether it's the topic or the person that I have to address conflict with. Now, I've grown up avoiding conflict for many reasons, the main being fear of disconnection, rejection, abandonment, disappointing others, a slew of reasons. I think that's the recovering people pleaser in me. You know, I grew up wanting to be well liked, and that was probably the anxious attachment in me as well. But I thought that by not saying anything, that I could maintain connections, that I could be well liked, that I can stay connected. And whether it was peers in middle school that literally followed me home to fight me, y'all, literally, I'm a walker. I got my rolling book bag and my viola. And someone is following me home to fight me, and I'm avoiding them, ignoring them. Or even, I'm the youngest of four. I have 3 older step siblings, and there were times where I was teased and outcast, left out. That hurt, and I avoided confronting them about how I felt. Even in romantic relationships where I'd ignore red flags, right? Wouldn't confront them for the sake of having someone to love. And of course, like I said earlier, many of these tendencies to avoid conflict can be traced back to growing up in an environment that was either dismissive or hypercritical. Now, I won't say that my environment, specifically with my caregivers, was dismissive. I will say that there was some hypercriticalness or hypercriticism. And I know it was well intended, so that's not to say anything bad about my caregivers, but more so to say that I wanted to please. I wanted to be approved. I wanted to stay connected. I wanted to be well liked, right? Now in present day, as a Black woman in her 30s, there's environments where I absolutely try to avoid conflict. One of them being the workplace. Y'all, I used to work in an office setting, surprisingly, with majority women of color, right? So I'm expecting it to be like, oh, sis this, sis that, we're all good. We're one big family. It's kumbaya, honky-dory, whatever. No. I would say probably after the honeymoon period of like a month, I would feel discomfort at the slightest sign of, conflict or someone not liking me. Right. And I was trying hard. I'm in a leadership position. I'm trying my hardest to appease. I'm trying my hardest to lead with integrity and confidence, but I struggled, and that struggle, it transcends into even some of my friendships with other Black women. Right. The other day, I was talking to a really close sister friend of mine. She's known me for 15 plus years. I feel like she knows me better than I know myself. And we were discussing like grievances I have in specific friendships. I'm sharing with her my hurt, some of my skepticism, what I'm discerning, even some of my annoyances. And like the good sister friend she is, she challenged me and she said, "Have you addressed this with them?" Girl, what? No. I have not. Of course I haven't. Because that's why I'm conflict averse. And I'm smiling because it's something that I'm working on. I'm trying not to judge myself, even in this present moment during this episode, for even talking about the fact that I'm conflict averse, because I know that it affects my relationships, right? But it just seems that I'd rather let connections, fade away or just wait it out for conflicts to fizzle out than address them, right? I could be waiting weeks, years, because I am that uncomfortable with conflict. And it's crazy because, well, not crazy, but it is interesting and ironic because I am a therapist, mental health therapist, and I encourage my clients, use these skills, use these tools to communicate effectively, to address conflict, while I am still struggling with it. And that's okay, right? Now, this doesn't mean that I've never addressed friends with conflict, right? There are times when I was even the initiator. I'm calling them in like, hey, person, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a romantic partner, I'm like, we need to talk. This is something that we need to address. But majority of the time, I probably am battling a few factors, including myself, that are preventing me from healthily addressing conflict. I saw an article while I was doing some research around this on Healthline, and they shared that conflict avoidance is a type of people-pleasing behavior that typically arises from a deep-rooted fear of upsetting others. And like I said earlier, I'm a recovering people pleaser, right? I've learned that time and time again, conflict is uncomfortable but necessary, right? Now, we live in the day and age where everything is on a screen. Our phones, tablets, computers, TV, we can connect with others through a screen, and it has its benefits, right? I've met a lot of people through social media that I'm connected to this day that have been really supportive. We enjoy each other's friendship and conversation. I've never met them face to face, but the benefit has been that screen has helped. It's brought us closer together, especially during the pandemic. I know y'all remember how that really kept us connected. But that phone has also been a hindrance. I'm sure that there are times where I should have called someone up, video chatted them, but I text. And I've learned time and time again that texting is not the best way to communicate during a disagreement or an argument, especially because nonverbal cues are a majority of the way that we communicate, right? Think about it. If I'm behind a screen, you can never fully experience the intent of my communication because you're missing a large part. You're missing my body language, the tone of my voice, the inflection in my voice, even eye contact. And when you take away nonverbal communication, you're left to your own interpretation, right? How many of us have probably read a text message, and depending on the emotional state we're in or the point of view we have, that is how we read it, right? So if I text, I wasn't feeling how you shut down our conversation over text, that could be read a multitude of ways. It could be read gently, assertively, aggressively, with an attitude, maybe even jokingly, with anger, or maybe there's even some curiosity, but they won't know that because it's just through text. It's just through words on the screen. You see, any conversation that I've had, that's lacked any emotional content, it was very hard to convey and interpret the emotion behind the text. None of that could be, accurately ascertained. And so, what do we do? Right? I'm wondering why I, and maybe even many of you, have text arguments rather than picking up the phone, having a video call, or even meeting face to face. Well, an article on Psych Central stated that by not talking face to face about difficult subjects, you're simply engaging in what psychologists call avoidance, a defense mechanism. You're avoiding the topic rather than facing it head on, using texting as a way to sort of talk about it, but without all that messy irrationality that comes with a regular, direct conversation. And I was like, okay, well, first of all, read me. First of all, because, Whenever you're talking to someone, we're having 1,000 thoughts that are rushing through our mind. I'm sure a lot of us are trying really hard to actively listen, meaning we are engaged. We're hearing what the person is saying and not just listening to respond. And sometimes there happens to be moments where things feel irrational, right? Whether it's the emotions, whether it's the interpretations, whether it's the thoughts, whether it's the assumptions, conclusions we're coming to. And that can be uncomfortable to have to sort through, to have to really work through. That can be uncomfortable. And I'm sure that's something that many of us are avoiding, is that discomfort. Now, not all of us are conflict avoidant in the same way. So I'm about to read something that's going to call a couple of y'all out, but it's with love and compassion. So there's this article in Psychology Today that shared that there's actually two distinct types of conflict avoidant people. The first avoids conflict out of self-preservation. I think I fall into that category. The second is for self-serving reasons. So for those of us who fall under the self-preservation category, right? If we're involved with a person who is unable to perspective take, right? It probably makes it nearly impossible for us to work out difficulties constructively, right? So say that we enter into a simple disagreement, that probably goes from 0 to 100 real quick and turns into an epic battle. Understandably so, now we want to avoid that, right? Now, we may even be predicting that this is going to turn from a disagreement to an epic battle. And so we avoid it for that reason too, right? Our brain is tricky that way. We can either know from a pattern of behavior, or we can be predicting from our own fears that this is not going to go well. So we avoid it, right? We try to sidestep any of the power struggles, any of the discomfort, any of the words, the things that we don't want to hear, or even the things that we are scared to say, right? Now, in these type of situations, of course, it's really important when you start that conversation to have clear boundaries, right? Make sure that you know how we're going into the conversation, that we're respectful, and we know what our resolution is. Now, the second category was those who are avoiding conflict for self-serving reasons, right? Now, this is the type of person that maybe you know, maybe you are. Maybe you know, maybe you are, or maybe you've encountered, right? This is the type of person who is what we call egocentric, meaning they are the center of their world, universe, and everyone else's. They want to dodge someone's disapproval. They may hide their selfish acts. They may avoid conversations, all of those things that are focused on the issue that needs to be addressed in the relationship. And when they're exposed, they're like, well, I didn't tell you, or I didn't want to bring this up, or I didn't want to stress you out, or I didn't want to tell you the truth. Ooh, I've been told that before. I lied to you because I knew that the truth would hurt you. No, you lied to me because you didn't want to take accountability. And you were doing it for self-serving reasons because you still wanted access to me. Woo, I can go down a rabbit hole with that one. Okay. Now, this type of person may be like a partner, friend, coworker, family member who's conflict avoidant because they just want to escape any type of opposition or disapproval. And this type of evasion is destructive, right? So 2 types of conflict avoidant people. We got the ones for self-preservation, which I fall under that category. Maybe you do too. Then we have the ones that are self-serving, the ones who are saying, I didn't want to tell you because it will stress you out, or they may be avoiding the disapproval and opposition. They kind of just want things to continue to go their way. Why is this harmful? This is very harmful, right? Whether it's through the experience of that type of conflict or through us predicting that that's what's going to happen, this is harmful. And there's an article or a blog on Healthline that reminds us, when you avoid the slightest disagreement, you're compromising your true feelings and storing up frustration that can end up negatively affecting your health. All right, y'all. So if you don't know, I'm a mental health therapist. And so I'm really interested in how certain unhelpful behaviors, unhelpful thoughts, unpleasant or uncomfortable emotions, how they affect us, not only mentally and emotionally, but also physically. So when I read this and they said that studies found that this could, of course, lead to feelings of loneliness, depression, anxiety, but that holding back, bottling up our emotions can also lead to cancer and premature death. What? If that doesn't, kind of reality check us, I don't know what else will. So in that, attempt to avoid conflict, we're actually harming ourselves as well as the relationship. It may seem like the best way to deal with conflict, because look, I do it too. But in the long run, it ends up harming the intimacy, honesty, and communication in a relationship. Now, y'all know I wouldn't bring y'all down this rabbit hole without us having some sort of lesson or resolution or tools to walk away. So how do we overcome this conflict avoidance? And I'm saying we, because I too need to study, practice, and really be intentional about these steps. So I'm really glad that if you already asked, like, okay, girl, what are we supposed to do with all this information? How do I no longer be conflict avoidant? I'm glad that you're curious. So on that Healthline article, they gave a lot of great pointers. Now, of course, I immediately thought like, oh, what are some skills that I tell my clients? And those can be helpful, right? There are like DBT skills like Dear Man. There are also, skills like maybe half smiling when you're uncomfortable to kind of help you to move through that uncomfortable situation or move through that interaction. But I want to give you some ones that are actually applicable today that you can write down, that you can practice, and you can continue to learn and maybe even share with someone. So the first step or pointer, write this down, is reframe. Reframe how you view confrontation. Disagreeing with someone does not necessarily mean like literally fighting, right? So I don't know how many of you, when you hear the word, when you hear the word conflict, you think of a fight, you think of violence, you think of hostility, you think of it being, just angry, aggressive, right? But that's not true. We got to challenge that belief and remind ourselves that conflict resolution is actually about standing up for yourself and communicating when you feel something, whether it's anger, frustration, hurt, pain. It is about you communicating that. It's also about ensuring that problematic issues are dealt with so they don't happen again. Now, I don't know about you, but I, as a conflict avoidant person, tend to then get upset that I'm experiencing the same grievances over and over and over. And like my sister friend I mentioned earlier, it was like, well, did you address it? Did you like call them in for that? No. So can I be mad that it keeps happening? Yes and no. I can't control someone else's behavior, but I also didn't call them in about it. So how do we do that? Second step, make a plan. Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. I am a writer. I love to write things down. It is okay if you write down every single point that you want to share or say in that conflict or in that interaction with that person, right? You want to feel confident. So it's okay if you even ask like a trusted friend or a supportive person to read it and rehearse it with you. You guys can role play. That is okay. It doesn't mean that you're childish. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're intentional. So make a plan, write down what you want to say, and be confident when you share it. Now, remember that you have to clearly define what you'd like to resolve. We're not just going into this to say like, you made me feel like this, or I felt like this when you said this, I was feeling this when you did that, and, I just wanted you to know. I know sharing for the sake of sharing is important, but in these moments when you're expressing some negative feelings that you have about someone's, behavior or an interaction with them, bring a resolution. What do you want them to do differently? What do you want to change about your experience? Right? You can even write down very canned, factual, responses based on fact only. No emotion, feeling, assumptions. Just you can write it down and use this when needed to bring that up to them. So I mentioned earlier that conflict avoidance also is because of the discomfort we feel. And that discomfort is not just, the mental discomfort, but it also can be physical. Our nervous system sometimes goes into what we call emergency mode when we feel any sense of threat or danger. Now, for those of us that are conflict avoidant, confronting someone in a moment of conflict feels like a threat or danger. And so our nervous system is in that fight or flight mode, right? We're ready to escape. We're freezing. We don't know what to say. Maybe we do tend to get a little hostile, right? And are ready to fight. Or maybe we go back into that people pleasing tendency. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Those are those 4 stress responses. And so in order to combat that, here's the third tip. Use your senses. Now, this is where the mindfulness comes into play. And y'all know I love mindfulness. Staying centered, staying in the present moment, staying very aware during a conversation is so important. And it's understandable if you can get distracted, lose focus, lose your train of thought, especially when emotions start to arise. So when I say use your senses, I literally mean that, your 5 senses. What do you see around you? What are you hearing? What do you smell? Is there anything that you taste? You got some gum or mint in your mouth? And what do you feel? If you are a visual person, you can ask the person in the middle of the conversation, can I take a break? And maybe take 5 minutes to just visualize soothing images. The beach, that's mine. I'm going to the beach. It's not crowded like Virginia Beach often is. It's a day where the seagulls aren't attacking me for my food. There's music, there's good drinks, there's good people. If I'm imagining that, your brain and body will then start to embody that same emotion, that same feeling that you feel when you're in that space. I said earlier, our brain is tricky, but our brain is also very simple like that. Or maybe you're the type of person who likes soothing smells, right? You can carry a essential oil with you. I've seen essential oil bracelets, maybe like they're lava rocks, and you can put the essential oils on them and they tend to stay on there for a good amount of time. Or there's even essential oil necklaces. And so you can wear that so that that scent is soothing to you and your nervous system, so that when you're in the middle of that conversation, you feel centered, you feel grounded, you feel present, and you also feel confident. So that was the third tip. Use your senses. Number 4 is to recognize and manage your feelings. Now, I mentioned earlier that our nervous system can be on go when we're in the middle of a conflict, and that's probably why we want to avoid it. But we're also avoiding the management of our feelings because now we're not teaching ourselves how to handle those uncomfortable emotions. Being aware of how our emotions impact us helps us gain greater understanding of ourselves and others. This is a part of emotional intelligence. So before confronting someone, examine yourself, question your feelings, ask yourself, all right, I'm feeling a little, annoyed. Why am I feeling annoyed? Okay, so then why was that bad? What did that mean about me or the other person? Start to take yourself down some questions. We call it Socratic questioning, where you're kind of weighing the evidence. You're questioning how you feel and what you're thinking, right? Instead of trying to suppress or sedate your emotions, the ones that are uncomfortable, like anger, sadness, or fear, try looking at them through a lens of self-compassion. Allow yourself to see your negative or unhelpful thoughts with empathy. Managing your feelings is not just about saying like, okay, I feel this. I know that this feeling is trying to tell me this. And all right, good. It's not that black and white or always logical. Sometimes we do need to come at it like we would a friend, with empathy and compassion. And I love that Healthline, as they're giving these steps, they're also telling us, hey, you can use some affirmations. Y'all know I'm an affirmation girl. Okay. So here's some examples of affirmations that you can say while you are examining your feelings and needing to give yourself some compassion and empathy and grace. You can say, it's okay to feel however I'm feeling at this moment. My emotions are valid. I am worthy and deserving of being heard. All of my experiences, the good and the bad, give me the space to grow. Let that sit. I am I believe in the principle or the proponent of affirmations because the words that you say from your mouth, you're the first to hear. Okay. Shout out to Indiari for that line. Meaning that whatever it is that you say, you've already thought, and your brain and your body has already started to manifest based on what you're saying. Our words are powerful, people. Our words are powerful. So while you're trying to manage your feelings and get yourself ready for confrontation or to address a conflict with someone, remember that you can speak confidence, worthiness, affirmations over yourself. All right. So let's review really quick before we go on. The first step was what? Reframe. The second, make a plan. The third, use your senses. The fourth, manage your feelings. All right. The fifth is to resolve issues in real time. Now, this is where I kind of slip up because I will endlessly just kind of ruminate and talk about and think about and, kind of come up with different scenarios and try to put pieces together. It just festers. The conflict is now festering in my head. So instead, try a more assertive approach, right? Start by stating the issue non-emotionally using fact-based sentences. So, for example, instead of saying, it was really, messed up that you would take my parking spot. Okay, so first of all, you're assigning some sort of meaning to their behavior or their action. That's not fact-based. Instead, what you can say is, I noticed that while I was waiting for that parking spot, you took it instead. Fact-based. You ain't hear no feelings. You didn't hear any meaning I'm assigning to it. You just heard me give you the facts, right? Also, avoid being accusatory or defensive. Instead of saying, you made me upset because you took my parking space and you knew that I was trying to get into there and it's all your fault and I can't believe that you would do this to me. Ooh. Whoa. Pause. Breathe. Instead of being accusatory or defensive, try to say, I felt upset when you took the parking space. Right? It's exactly what they did. It's not necessarily saying it's your fault, I'm ready to beat you down because you did it. It's really just saying, hey, I need to let you know that you did this and I would like to address it. Okay. So I just gave y'all 5 steps to overcoming conflict avoidance. And I'm saying y'all like I'm not included in the number. I just gave us 5 steps to overcome conflict avoidance. Again, reframe, plan, senses, feelings, and resolve. Reframe, plan, senses, feelings, resolve. Reframe, plan, senses, feelings, resolve. Okay, I had to repeat it for myself. I hope that was helpful for y'all too. All right, so I want to leave y'all with this. There was this really great closing statements that were on one of the articles that I had read. I don't know if it was Psych Central, Psychology Today, or Healthline, but what they said was, while it's okay to never be completely comfortable with confrontation, being able to resolve issues effectively means accepting it as a healthy part of communicating with others. Remember that disagreeing provides deeper understanding and makes it easier to connect with your friends, partners, and coworkers. Learning how to confront someone assertively won't happen overnight, but you can still take small steps each day toward feeling more comfortable, facing your fears, and speaking up for yourself. We got this, y'all. We don't got to be avoiding no more. We are now in recovery because you done heard the tools, you've heard the steps, you got the knowledge. Now you got to wield the tools. So be accountable to yourself for real. I know I'm joking, but I really want you to be accountable to yourself, to really be intentional about taking steps. I'm going to try to do the same thing. We got this. We don't have to be avoiding anymore. We are now in recovery. All right. It is time to move into another segment of the podcast that we call Gift. It is our gratitude practice. The G stands for gratitude or goal. The I stands for intention. The F stands for faith or focus. And the T is for take action. Now, my G today is gratitude, and I'm grateful for a partner. I'm grateful for close friends, and I'm grateful for supportive family that are also effective communicators, or they're at least willing to grow in this area with me. It is not easy to be in relationship with people. And so I'm really grateful that I have, a couple or some of those people in my life that are really good about that. My intention is to release self-judgment and embrace growth on my journey. As I was talking about, my past, when even in like middle school or in the workplace or even in my relationships with other Black women, sometimes there can be a tendency to take that hypercriticism I experienced as a younger girl and apply that same judgment to myself. And so I'm trying to release that and embrace more growth on my journey, because it's a journey. It's the journey, a la Tisha Campbell. But yeah, it really is a journey. My faith. So my F today is going to be faith instead of focus. So my faith is to pray. Pray before facing conflict. Because let's be real, y'all. Sometimes we need a power bigger and stronger than us to help us, to walk alongside us, even to intervene. And I know that the God I serve, he can do anything. He don't play about me, and I am his favorite. But no, really, I'm going to call on him and be like, Abba, Father, because, sometimes we got to call him as a parent, be like, I need you to come and help me out because I can't do this on my own. Or you can call on him like a friend. Some of us have really great friends that we can trust to come and walk alongside us. So praying before conflict is probably so important because it also gives you the words to say, right? Words are powerful. MIT, take action. All right, y'all. I said that we have to be accountable. We're in recovery. And so we got to practice this. And so I am going to address at least one conflict that I have with someone within the next week. Even saying it, I'm sweating. But I have to do it. I have to do it because this is part of my personal growth and this is a part of me strengthening my relationships. I'm too old to be playing games. Big age. That's my gift, y'all. If you're practicing this, feel free to share it. Comment on YouTube. Maybe you can even share an email with me. Comment on Instagram. Gift. Let me know how y'all are practicing this gratitude exercise. I would love to know. All right, y'all. The last segment, Vibe Tunes ATM. Our Vibe Tunes at the moment. This is where I share, or we, when I have a guest, share what it is that we're listening to, what's on our heart, what's on our spirit, what's banging in the car, what maybe visuals we are just obsessed with. And these two artists I'm about to share have been on repeat probably for the last 3 months, a long time, basically. And with some of them since like early this year. The first is How Does It Make You Feel by Victoria Monet. Now, Victoria Monet is not new to this. She's true to this. She is a literally vet in the game. She's been doing this for probably 15 plus years. She knows what she's doing. And she is an amazing songwriter. I love the way her lyrics express certain experiences and emotions. But I also just love her voice. I love the production on this new album, Jaguar 2, because Jaguar 1 set the bar. 2020, Jaguar came out. That was also on rotation. But Jaguar 2 is definitely a really good production. I think someone even told me that her producer, the production for this album was the same for Silk Sonic. And that makes sense with some of the sounds that we're hearing, some of the vibes. So, but how does it make you feel? Y'all know I'm a lover. I just love love. And so how does it make you feel? It's like a love song. It's about being in connection and relationship with someone and just asking how it makes them feel. My second vibe tune is called Favorite by LA and Xavier Omar. Now, Xavier Omar is someone I've been listening to for a very long time, probably for the last, I would say 9, maybe even 10 years. And like I remember his song Blind Man. You're so beautiful, girl, a blind man can love you. Woo! Yeah. Woo! Yeah. And so Favorite with an artist, LA, who actually came to one of his concerts when he had it at, I want to say it was the Fillmore in Silver Spring, Maryland. I went there and actually took a picture with him, with Xavier Omar at that concert. LA was there too. And LA is also featured, or not even featured, it's their song together. It's LA and Xavier Omar. But Favorite stands out to me because my anniversary just passed, 3 years with my partner. And that was the song that I used, or that song that was resonating the entire celebration with us, and the one that I actually put on social media for our celebration post. And so Favorite by LA and Xavier Omar, and How Does It Make You Feel by Victoria Monet. Of course, they'll be on the playlist on YouTube. Y'all, I'm still working on the playlist on Apple Music and Spotify. Who wants to do it for me? If you want to do it for me, raise your hand, leave a comment, create the playlist for me. Just do it and I'll hug you. I'll give you lots of love and a shout out. And that is it, y'all. Thanks so much for listening to Here We Are, the Mindful Podcast for Millennials. Let's connect on Instagram at the Here We Are Pod, Facebook at Here We Are Podcast with Teka, and on YouTube, Here We Are Pod. If you're loving the podcast, I'd be so honored if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button, rate, and leave me a review. Your ratings and your reviews help the podcast get in front of those that are aligned and need to hear it. I really appreciate it. And if you want to share your story in a future episode or have any feedback to share, email the HereWeArePod@gmail.com. That's TheHereWeArepod@gmail.com. Remember that your story can inspire and encourage others. Before you face any conflict, take a deep breath. Breathe in the present moment.